Welcome to another episode of the Meal Prep Monday podcast. I'm your host and founder of Prep Dish, Allison Schaaf. This week, we are wrapping up our little, two-part episode on sleep. If you didn't catch last week's episode, I talked about my bedtime routine. And then tonight, I'm talking more about the actual things I like to have in place for a good night's sleep. Before we get into the episode, Sandra, a Prep Dish subscriber, had this to share about her experience. This is my first week doing Prep Dish. I have to admit that I was pretty intimidated by the idea of prep day, so I only did 3 meals. It wasn't bad at all. I have to say, this is the least stressful week I've had in a while. It's like having a meal kit service where all of my recipes and ingredients are ready. I don't even need the full 2 weeks of my free trial to get the membership. Thanks for sharing, Sandra. I'm so excited to hear that it was your least stressful week you've had in a long time. That is certainly our goal here at Prep Dish. And if you are listening to this and you want to try the 2-week free trial that she tried, you can just head to prepdish.com/MPM, short for Meal Prep Monday. And as always, that is linked in the show notes as well. Okay, so for today's episode, if you didn't listen last week, I talked more about my bedtime routine, which is really kind of just a precursor to making sure I get in good sleep. And for those of you that aren't longtime listeners, I currently have a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and 3-month-old at home. So as you can imagine, sleep is just very important in my household for all members. I tend to put a lot of thought into everyone's sleep and making sure we're all getting it. So after I do that kind of bedtime routine that we discussed last week, there are another kind of 5 to 6 pieces that I'm doing. And some of these I actually made a note, so there's 6 total. Some are things that are like good habits. Others, I'm not sure if they are, but I'm going to share them with you anyway. And I guess also setting the stage for this. So right now, the way we split up, so at night, I start out with the big kids. I actually go down the same time they do. We all are in the same bed. This started during the renovation. We started bed sharing because we're all in one room. And now that we, a few months ago, moved back upstairs when the renovations were complete, but that was about the same time that the baby came. And we just never got around to transitioning the older 2 boys to their own room. And it just hasn't felt like the time to do it because we are just so focused on all things baby, and it works for now. So this is just our life. And I honestly don't mind it. I've never done bed sharing with the babies. I've always been too nervous to do that. And with the older kids, it's actually kind of sweet and cuddly. And again, it works for us right now. So I am going to bed usually around 7:30 or 8, the same time as the older 2. I think my ideal time would be going to bed around 8:30 or 9. But what I do, and I'll just start out with the habit that I'm like, I don't know if this is a great habit, but this is what I do because I go to bed so early and I like to get up early, but I just am not quite ready for bed. So I will usually listen to either a podcast or a book I've started using Libby a lot. You can get free books from your local library, like audiobooks. I still use Audible to get the books that I can't find in the library. But yeah, that's a lot of my quote unquote reading time. It's really just listening, but I'm doing that a lot of times before or as I'm falling asleep. I don't know if that's the best, again, sleep habit, but I think because I'm going to bed early and I don't know, it just kind of helps me wind down and drift off into sleep. Okay, so that's the first thing that I'm doing. So the other 5 pieces, some of these are just kind of the standard, healthy sleep habits. 1, I'm always making sure our room is completely dark. That was something we really emphasized in redoing the room. We put in curtains. We actually didn't do blackout ones, but the ones we have are basically blackout. We were nervous that they wouldn't be, but they are. And we put a lot of time and effort into making sure that was the case. The other piece is temperature. So when I'm going up and taking my bath back to that bedtime routine, I am also checking the temperature of the room. I love to open windows. So depending on the temperature outside, I will just open the windows. If it's too hot to do that, we did also install mini splits. So our bedroom has its own kind of AC unit. So I will turn those on just to make sure that So this is what I did. And I found on Amazon all these little thermometers. And I think there's like 4 in a pack, and I bought like 2 packs. So I have 8 of them. And I can just put them all around the house and they will show, like right now, it's showing that, here at my desk, the temperature is 70.4 degrees. So I can always use that as kind of a very, objective way of like, what's the temperature in the room? Because before the renovation, we only had one thermostat for the entire house. So often, like different rooms were drastically different temperatures. And sometimes it's hard for me to judge exactly. So anyway, I like having the thermometers all over the house so I can tell what the room is. And I know that I want it to be, definitely under 70 degrees. And that kind of helps me judge if I need to turn the AC on before I go to bed. So that is a piece. Another piece is I have a silk pillowcase. I've actually used one for years, but I've started seeing them come up a lot on kind of social media and stuff like that. But they're supposed to be really good for your face and preventing wrinkles, and also for your hair and preventing it from like getting frizzy. So I really love my silk pillowcases. My grandmother gave me my first one. And then several years later, I think my sister-in-law got one for me. And I don't know. So I have a few now and I kind of rotate them and try and also wash them very often. They have to be like hand washed and all that, but I love my silk pillowcases. The other piece, and this is one I was really good at, and then lately I have not been sticking to, but that is trying to train myself to sleep on my back. So I don't know that this gives necessarily the best night of sleep, but it's supposed to be, I don't know. I am often a stomach sleeper. And then sometimes we'll change to like my side sleeping, which is not great for my neck and shoulders, but it's also really not good for face and wrinkles, especially if you favor one side over time. That becomes very noticeable on your face. I had my eyebrows microbladed back in the fall. And when I did that, you're required to sleep on your back for 2 weeks afterwards, which was really hard to do. But I used that as kind of an opportunity to, okay, I was forced to do it. And so I did it. And then I noticed as soon as those 2 weeks were up, I tried to do it. And some nights I would, some nights I wouldn't. But I've learned that I can do it if I really want to. And I do feel like overall it's like better alignment and just a better, way to sleep. So that's something I work on now. If I'm very exhausted and, we've had a rough night with the baby or anything like that, then I go to whatever's comfortable. But ideally, and I think once the baby's a little older, I will get back to sleeping on my back. And speaking of the baby, so I'm going to bed with the kids, and the way that we split up baby, and we've done this with most of them. I think 7 because I was, nursing not as much. I kind of did all of the nights. But what we do with Tovin, and I think we did with our first as well, is I go to bed really early. My husband stays up with the baby and then goes to bed downstairs, and then halfway through the night. So anytime between 2 and 5 a.m. is when I'm waking up. It kind of depends on, he's not on a schedule yet or anything like that. So if he's waking up anytime after 2, then my husband knows, okay, he comes up and gets me, and I come down and then I'm with the baby. So ideally, if the baby's up anytime after 4:30, if my turn starts anytime after 4:30, because I go to bed so early, I just stay up for the night or the morning. If he's getting me up at 2, I'm trying to go back to sleep and kind of managing all of that. So, a lot of my sleep depends on, how the baby's doing. Overall, he's done, everyone always asks like, how is the baby sleeping? And I feel like I'm like, he sleeps like he should at 3 months, like it's better than one of ours did and worse than the other one, or about the same. And I don't know. I feel like now I kind of know what to expect. So, I mean, it's not like he's sleeping 8 hours a night, but I wouldn't expect him to. And then the last piece I wanted to talk about was my Oura ring. I did an episode, I'll link it in the show notes. I did an episode on my Oura ring. I really love it. And it's funny, I went to dinner with a few people, I don't know, a month or 2 ago, and we were all talking about one of the other girls were like, yeah, we wake up and the first thing we do is like, how did I sleep? And we look at our ring to tell us how we slept. And I realized I was kind of like maybe into it too much. And when baby first came, it was frustrating because sometimes if I'd wake up in the middle of the night, say at 2 a.m., and then I'd go back to sleep from like 3 to 5, the ring wouldn't always track that sleep very well, which was frustrating because then it'd be like, oh, you only slept 5 hours last night, even though I knew I had slept more. So that started to become frustrating. But then the issue I started running into is my battery became really, really bad at, even if I charged it right before bed, anytime I slept more than 5 or 6 hours, the battery would die by like hour 6 or 7. So if I ever got good sleep, my ring would not track it. And this became, quite frustrating. And so I was like, I'm just going to go a week without. And at this point, I've been probably a month without it. I would like to start using it again. I do like the Oura ring. I think it's really good. I've really been able to tap into a lot of like what helps with good sleep versus bad sleep, what impacts my sleep and in what ways. And it's been super helpful. But I think for that first month or two with a baby, it was also good to not have that and just kind of go back to, I went to bed at 8 and got up at 5. And, I was up once or twice, but I was able to fall back asleep or I wasn't, but not like have the hard numbers because sometimes that was hard to see if I wasn't getting enough sleep. Anyway, I can't get my ring to charge again. I would like to. So at some point, I'm going to go back and maybe I'll be wearing it again. There's certain things I like, especially for tracking my cycle. I really like it. So, you can see your temperature. So, like when you're ovulating and all of that and kind of know some more insights into your cycle. And, of course, I love the sleep data. So I think I'll get back to it. But for now, I need to figure out how to get it to charge and have a full battery. Now I've tried and I can't even get it to work at all. So like now it's stopped charging. I know I had a friend that that happened. She stopped wearing it and then it didn't work for a while. So I'm not worrying about it too much yet because I feel like my sleep's probably still like in my mind, I'm telling myself it's a little better than it is. So maybe I don't want to know, but I do plan to get back to the Oura ring. But right now, one of my sleep habits is not wearing my Oura ring. And I'm very happy with that decision, even though I'll probably get back to it. Okay. Yeah. So those are kind of my sleep habits. So listening to a book, I don't know, you can tell me good or bad, working for me right now. Dark, cold, silk pillowcase, sleeping on my back if I can, not always, but that's a goal. And no Oura ring for now, but probably in the future. So that's what I have for sleep. When I do these kind of episodes, it's kind of interesting to then go back. Like I was even thinking maybe I should go back and re-listen to some of my morning time routines I know I've done in the past because all of these things, I feel like in the past maybe I'd stick to things longer, but now with having kids and they are just changing so fast and, especially baby, right? Like each week he has a new quote unquote like rhythm and routine and all of that. So I'm kind of forced to always be in flux and changing what I'm doing. But that's what it looks like for now. And I hope that maybe this gives you some ideas if you are trying to work on your sleep. Okay, that is all I have for this week. A reminder that if you have not tried out our time-saving meal prep meal plans, we have a 2-week free trial. As in the beginning, Prep Dish customer Sandra said that she had her least stressful week she's had in a long while when she tried Prep Dish. So if you want to see how your week goes with Prep Dish, go to prepdish.com/MPM, short for Meal Prep Monday. If you are a longtime listener to this podcast and have not left a rating and review, I would appreciate if you could just take a few minutes and do that, or take a screenshot or share a link out to a friend if you know someone that might find one of these episodes helpful. Just helps more people to find our podcast. That's all I have for this week. I will be back again next Monday with another episode.